where are you from? I grew up in 9 different cities, and I learned a lot about the Jewish community in doing that, as being a wandering Jew, quite literally. And moving from city to city, one of the best experiences you have is when you go to the grocery store. When you first go to the grocery store, you may think you're just purchasing food for that evening, but what I experienced is that people came over to me and said, "Are you new in town? What's your name? Do you have a meal for Shabbat? How can I help you?" When I went to synagogue, when I went to shul, droves of people came over to me and asked me, "How can I help you? What do you do? Do you have a place to stay? Can I invite you for a meal for Shabbat? Oh, this week is booked? How about next week?" And within minutes, I was set for the next 6 months. And I thought, if I'm gonna move to New York City, that experience is gonna be even bigger and better because it's New York City. There are millions of Jews. Jewish culture has infiltrated New York. Bagels, Seinfeld. So you get to New York, and I walk into the grocery store. Okay, so nobody acknowledges or notices you in a grocery store in New York City. But certainly if you go into a synagogue, people will come over and say Shabbat Shalom. But I walk in, no hello, no nothing, not even a smile sometimes. You could spend months in New York not being even noticed because you're a dime a dozen, because bigger is not better. Now, a lot of times you hear people say bigger is not better, and they're saying it often out of a position of weakness, right? It's because enrollment is slow, things aren't going well, a program is failing a little bit. And I'm coming today to tell you, I joined JOFA, the Jewish Orthodox Feminist Alliance, 3 years ago as the executive director. And depending on how you measure our programs quantitatively, our numbers have either doubled or tripled. And it feels really good, right? Because you plan a webinar, 14,000 people come, it feels great. But it doesn't matter if 14,000 people show up if we're not transforming the Orthodox community, if we're not being more inclusive, if we're not creating more opportunities to make sure that every single person matters in the community. It doesn't matter if 10 million people show up if we're not doing that. In our community, we've been focused heavily on growing the community, on big numbers, on bigger budgets, more staff, frankly, more Jewish babies. And the question is, why? And that can be answered with the whole wandering Jew thing, right? We fled persecution to persecution, expulsion to inquisition. We fled the Holocaust. We came to North America. And we got to North America. We started studying our community with the National Jewish Population Survey, more recently with the Pew Study. And we were presented with these numbers that shocked us, that were alarming, that were red flags. They told us that there would not be a North American Jewish community with the next generation. And that affected many of our decisions the past several decades. And it's so infiltrated the way that we thought and made decisions in our community that there was an educational activity that you may have experienced. It happened across religious affiliations. What happened with me and my friends is we were campers sitting on the ground and we saw our counselor behind a glass panel. And behind this glass panel, she read the script of The Last American Jew. And she explained how Judaism had become a chore and how millions of Jews in North America had come down to one. And it was shocking. But that's not why I'm Jewish today. You didn't scare me straight. I was already sort of in. There were so many other reasons to be Jewish. Scare tactics don't make people Jewish, and that's not doing justice to what Judaism is all about. So the reality is, though, that there's a reason that people like measuring and using numbers. And what are those reasons? Well, firstly, numbers don't lie. A number 2 is a number 2 no matter where you are in the world. And that's helpful. The second reason that people like quantitative analysis is that if you're investing in the Jewish community, you have this before, and you see that there are holes or things that could be better and different. And then you have this middle where you're going to insert a program, a staff member, or something. And you want to be able to measure that impact with the end, and numbers are a great way to do that. There are a few problems, though. Firstly, numbers don't lie, but statistics do, right? Ask any statistician, ask any manager of a political campaign. We humans input numbers to project trends that we want to show people. Okay, you're sold. The second problem with quantitative analysis is that we've been doing this for many decades now. And if this was working, using quantitative analysis, making decisions in this very scary mode of modus operandi, then our numbers should be increasing. But instead, what's happened over time, they haven't even plateaued, they're decreasing. This is not working. And imagine that part of it, the reason that it's not working is because numbers don't sway people. If numbers swayed people, when you turn on a television, you would see a fancy mathematician with a great pedigree typing in some numbers, and bam, that's your toothpaste. But that's not what happens. You turn on the television, and instead, you see a girl, and she's brushing her teeth, and she finishes brushing her teeth, flashes her whites, and jogs off to school. And you're gonna buy that toothpaste because the girl looks happy, she has clean teeth, they're white, she seems intelligent. It's a quality of life that appeals to you. I don't want to argue that quantity doesn't matter at all, because as someone who, when enrolling in high school, I single-handedly increased our school's enrollment by 20%. Now, to give you a better idea of what that looks like, the school was thrilled that I joined because it meant that we could play 3-on-3 basketball during gym class. And every single day, our principal would say, it's about the quality, not the quantity. And I was like, well, to an extent, right? Because here I was in a school of 6 people. I couldn't choose my courses. I couldn't participate in extracurricular activities, certainly not team sports. And the only time we played full court basketball was when I called our mothers and asked them to come to gym class with us. So I get it. The other problem, though, with quantitative analysis is that it's not a Jewish thing. Sefer Bamidbar is often mistranslated as the Book of Numbers. And it's translated as the Book of Numbers because a number of censuses are conducted in Sefer Bamidbar. And there are 2 reasons for that. One, we went to war, and we wanted to be able to account for our people before and after. The other reason given for counting the Jewish people in Sefer Bamidbar is that God wants to demonstrate God's love for the Jewish people. And the same way if you have any sort of collection, not to objectify the Jewish people too much, God is going ahead and counting us because to show that each and every member of the Jewish community matters. But what's incredible about the census is not only the why, it's also the how it's conducted. It's not that everyone just throws their card in a bucket and it's tallied up and there we know how many Jewish people there are. No, people came, they brought a machatzit hashekel, a half of a shekel, they made a donation. They were engaged and contributed to the community, and that's how we accounted for every single member. They mattered. This process matters so much that it becomes a part of Jewish law. It's forbidden, according to Jewish law, Talmud Yoma 22b, to measure or count the Jewish people. You can't do it. King David goes ahead and violates this prohibition. He goes ahead and counts the Jewish people for no reason, and as a result, the Jewish people are punished. According to Nachmanides, it's because he did it for no good reason. He just wanted to count the people. We're not supposed to count without purpose. So why are we doing that now? So if we're not going to measure quantitatively, we still want to be able to measure our impact. We still want to make sure that we're being smart and wise about how we invest our time and energy to build the Jewish community. But what if we focused on quality? Now, quality is more complicated, right? Because how do you define quality? Well, according to Webster's dictionary, quality is defined as some sort of degree of excellence. But even still, the way that I see quality and the way that you see quality is different, because it's subjective. It's never going to be the same. But let me show you what this would look like. Let's say we decide we're going to fill all of the baseball stadiums across North America. We're going to fill them up with Jews. We're going to pray, and then we're going to go home. Okay? With quantitative analysis, if we did this, We can measure how many people purchased tickets. We can measure how many showed up. We can measure how long they stayed. But that's about it. What if we asked all of them to take out their cell phones and tell us, why are you here? What if we asked them, what did you get out of today? What were you hoping to get out of today? Why would you come back? Why wouldn't you come back? Within minutes, you could identify codes and frequencies and not only know how many people came, but who the people are. And that is a Jewish concept. We borrow this from the narrative of the book of Genesis by Sher Husham. It means literally in the place where he is. And colloquially, it means that we meet people where they are at. And this is often used in the field of Jewish education. We meet people where they are at. We don't believe that Judaism should be a one-size-fits-all. And we also see this with the Pesach Seder, right? We have 4 different prototypes of children. We don't want everyone to fit and be the same and be engaged in solely the same way. But we can't do that. We can't be Ba'asher Husham. We can't engage people where they are if we don't know where there is. We have to ask. There are 2 major problems with qualitative analysis. First, it's really hard. It's hard, right? Because you can't just throw a program together last minute and say, oh, people show up, they'll have a good time, they'll be fine. You have to think. You have to be intentional. You have to think, what do I want them to text message to us? What do I want them to get out of this program? What are my objectives and goals? It's a big problem there, being intentional. The other problem, and this is the problem that most critics of qualitative analysis will have, is that qualitative analysis is biased. Because when you do quantitative analysis, the subjects of your study may never know they're the subject of your study. They're untouched. They're living their lives and you're studying them. With qualitative analysis, I'm sitting down with you for 45 minutes, and I'm asking you, why do you go to synagogue? What does it mean to you? What's going well? What could be better? What's your role in synagogue? I'm spending 45 minutes with you, and because of that, you're thinking, you're engaged, you're reflecting, and your answers are biased. So what we'd be left with is this group of people who are engaged, who are provoked, but very biased research. It's a good problem to have. When I think about JOFA and what drives me with it, the numbers are nice, right? We said that sometimes the numbers are nice, but there are moments that are intimate. Like when I'm sitting in a living room and people share their stories with me and they share what they think could be better. It's a one-on-one moment when I sit with a woman who has told me how she's had a complicated life as an Orthodox woman and felt restricted in so many ways because of the laws which don't allow women opportunities. And so we decided to study sources together, and as we're studying them, tears are falling onto the pages because she realizes now there were things that she thought were restricted that are perfectly allowed, and now she could truly, deeply engage with our community. That's what drives me. What would it look like if we started thinking about the Jewish people as individual people and not a statistic? We'll thrive.